Chapter 11, text number 6. So, have it here on the board. Maybe you already know. You have been to. This is a Sanskrit text. And we are going to recite together. So I will say one line and everyone repeat. And after we will read the word for word translation and the full translation. And then we have purport and explanation by our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, sitting here. So, Apratang nastvaya kingnu.
Apratang nastvaya kingnu.
Apratang nastvaya kingnu.
Apratang nastvaya kingnu.
Bhagavan Bhuvaneshwara.
Bhagavan Bhuvaneshwara.
Bhagavan Bhuvaneshwara.
Bhagavan Bhuvaneshwara.
Yannonta hridayam visha.
Yannonta hridayam visha.
Yannonta hridayam visha.
Yannonta hridayam visha.
Tamohamsi svarochisha.
Tamohamsi svarochisha.
Tamohamsi svarochisha.
Tamohamsi svarochisha.
Apratang nastvaya kingnu.
Apratang nastvaya kingnu.
Bhagavan Bhuvaneshwara.
Bhagavan Bhuvaneshwara.
Yannonta hridayam visha.
Yannonta hridayam visha.
Tamohamsi svarochisha.
Tamohamsi svarochisha.
Apratam nastvaya kinu.
Apratam nastvaya kingnu.
Bhagavan Bhuvaneshwara.
Bhagavan Bhuvaneshwara.
Yannonta hridaya visha.
Yannonta hridayam visha.
Tamohamsi svarochisha.
Tamohamsi svarochisha. Apratam nastvaya kingnu.
Apratam nastvaya kingnu.
Bhagavan Bhuvaneshwara.
Bhagavan Bhuvaneshwara.
Yannonta hridayam visha.
Yannonta hridayam visha.
Tamohamsi svarochisha.
Tamohamsi svarochisha.
Apratam nastvaya kingnu.
Apratam nastvaya kingnu.
Bhagavan Bhuvaneshwara.
Bhagavan Bhuvaneshwara.
Yannonta hridayam visha.
Yannonta hridayam visha.
Tamohamsi svarochisha.
Tamohamsi svarochisha.
Apratam nastvaya kingnu.
Apratam nastvaya kingnu.
Bhagavan Bhuvaneshwara.
Bhagavan Bhuvaneshwara.
Yannonta hridayam visha.
Yannonta hridayam visha.
Tamohamsi svarochisha.
Tamohamsi svarochisha. Ladies.
Apratam nastvaya kingnu.
Apratam nastvaya kingnu.
Bhagavan Bhuvaneshwara.
Bhagavan Bhuvaneshwara.
Yannonta hridayam visha.
Yannonta hridayam visha.
Tamohamsi svarochisha.
Tamohamsi svarochisha. Apratam,
Apratam.
not given.
Not given.
Naha,
Naha.
unto us.
Unto us.
Tvaya,
Tvaya.
by your lordship.
My worship.
Kim,
Kingnu.
what?
What?
No,
No.
indeed.
Indeed.
Bhagavan,
Bhagavan.
O Supreme Lord.
O Supreme Lord.
Bhuvana Ishvara,
Bhuvaneshwara.
O Master of the whole universe.
O Master of the whole universe.
Yat,
Yat.
because.
Because.
Naha,
Naha.
our. Antahridayam,
Antahridayam.
within the core of the heart.
Within the core of our heart.
Visha,
Vishya.
Visha,
Isha.
entering.
Entering.
Tamaha,
Tamaha.
the darkness of ignorance.
The darkness of ignorance.
Hamsi,
Namsi.
you annihilate.
You annihilate.
Swarochisha,
Swarochisha,
by your own effulgence. Translation. O Lord, you are the master of the entire universe. What have you not given to us? You have entered the core of our hearts and dissipated the darkness of our ignorance by your effulgence. This is the supreme gift. We do not need a material donation. Purport. When Dhruva Maharaj was offered a benediction by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he replied, O my Lord, I am fully satisfied. I do not need any material benediction. Similarly, when Prahlad Maharaj was offered a benediction by Lord Nrsimhadev, he also refused to accept it and instead declared that a devotee should not be like a vanik, a mercantile man who gives something in exchange for some profit. One who becomes a devotee for some material profit is not a pure devotee. Brahmanas are always enlightened by the Supreme Personality of Godhead within the heart. Sarvasya chaham priti sanivishtu mata smritir jnanam apohanam cha. And because the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas are always directed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are not greedy for material wealth. What is absolutely necessary they possess, but they do not want an expanded kingdom. An example of this was given by Vamanadev. Acting as a brahmachari, Lord Vamanadev wanted only 3 paces of land. Aspiring to possess more and more for personal sense gratification is simply ignorance. And this ignorance is conspicuous by its absence from the heart of a Brahmana or Vaishnava. You understand English? So, we first of all have to understand, the first thing we have to understand in spiritual life is that we are not this body. Which is not so difficult to understand, at least theoretically. This physical body made of flesh and bones. This is not me. I am more than that. Some soldiers, sometimes they lose an arm or a leg. It hurts a lot, but they're still me. So that means that I'm not this arm which I have lost. It is not, I'm different from this body. So the Vedas say, Aham Brahmasmi. I am spirit. Of course, the impersonalists, they will say that I am spirit, I am God. We don't say that. We say I am spirit. Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita that we are sparks, small sparks, part of the whole, what is the word? Amsa. Right?
Mama Vamshu
Mama Vamshu. We are parts and parcels, as Prabhupada says, we are parts and parcels of Krishna. It's like drops of water are parts and parcels of the ocean, but the drops of water are not the ocean. So we are spirit. All spiritual, all transcendentalists, they agree on that. We are spirit, we are not this body, but then what are we exactly? We understand that there are two souls inside the heart. There is the Atma, which is me, and there's the Paramatma. Paramatma means the super soul. We translate as the super soul in English. So that is God, that is Krishna. And we are like birds in a tree. That's another description of the soul. It's like a bird sitting on the tree of the material body, trying to enjoy the fruits. Now we have many fruits. This is the season of fruits. We have big apples on our apple trees. We're going to make a lot of apple juice next weekend. Maybe you can make in New Mayapur also. By the milkman has a big machine. You get some. We're going to make a lot. So we're trying to enjoy the fruits. But there are two birds sitting in that tree. And the second bird is not trying to enjoy the fruits. The second bird is Krishna. He is simply observing the enjoying bird, witnessing all his activities. So God is witnessing everything we do, and everything we do is taken into account. So our relationship to the super soul or to Krishna is that we are actually one other thing you might want to say is that we are not this body, but we are also not this mind, and that is more difficult to understand because as we understand, the mind is the next door neighbor of the spirit soul. It's the immediate next door neighbor, just like you have a jacket. The jacket, we can say, is the material, the physical body. Then you have what is underneath the jacket, t-shirt or whatever. That is the mind. So it sticks to the soul, we can say. And we are identifying with this body through what we call the false ego or the ahankara. That we think, I am this body, I am Danish, I'm man, I'm this and that. All these things we identify with. I am old, I'm young, but that is not me. So we don't know who we are. And we are actually spirit souls, we are eternal. We are Sach Chit Ananda. We are full of, originally we are full of bliss and knowledge also. So now we're just the opposite, we are temporary, at least we experience ourselves as temporary. We have to die, we have to take birth, we have to become old, get sick and die. So we are experiencing ourselves as temporary. We are full of misery. I think we can all, if we are honest, let's just admit it, there's a lot of misery in this world, both individually and collectively. And we are also in ignorance. Why do we have to go to school for so many years? because of ignorance. And once you take birth again and again, and every time you take birth, again you have to go to school. Again you have to learn how to eat, how to go to the bathroom. You have to learn everything, full of ignorance. Our real, now we're trying to enjoy in the material world. We're trying to enjoy our senses for ourselves, but our real activity, original activity, is actually to be a servant of the Lord, an eternal servant of Krishna. That is who we are, and that is what we ought to be doing. We ought to be serving Krishna. So I just wanted to talk about this word, duty. It's a bad word nowadays. People don't like to do their duty. So in French, it's called devoir. It's very interesting because devoir is both the noun and the verb, right? You have your duty to do. Il faut faire son devoir. But you also use the verb as devoir. It's the same word. And it means you ought to be doing. Or even sometimes we also use it for if you owe some money. Je te dois d'argent. I owe you, so I have a duty. So we have a duty, and where does the meaning of duty come from? It comes from God. And that is why we don't do our duties anymore, because we have forgotten everything about God. And I heard some lectures with Ravindra Swarup. He says that once you start speaking about rights, that means that people are not doing their duty. Isn't it? We speak about rights so much in the modern context. Everybody is concerned about, I have a right to this and that. I have a right to get an abortion. I have a right to get money from the government or whatever. But actually Krishna says, he says something about rights and duties in one verse in the Bhagavad Gita. He says in chapter 2, text 47, Karmani ivadhikaraste ma paleshu kadachana ma karma palahetur bhul ma te sangu karmani. So he says we have rights. What is our right?
Our duty.
Our right is to do our duty. That's all. Finished. Because once you speak about rights, usually it means I have rights because other people have a duty towards me. So I'm the center. Isn't it? It's very interesting. But in the Krishna conscious society, we say that I have a duty towards everyone else, and especially Krishna. So that is the Krishna conscious outlook on duty. And even the king, he's actually supposed to be the greatest servant. He's the servant of the people. So the problems start once that, especially when the leaders who are supposed to represent God, they stop representing God. That's where all the problems start. They take themselves as being the center, all in all, and the enjoyer. So that is the beginning of degradation. When the leaders of society they stop representing God. So that's something I thought about, which I think is very important. One of the reasons why society doesn't function anymore is because people stop doing their duty. And so many people are just getting money from the government, and even though they can work, I'm not saying that if you're handicapped or you have some problem that you cannot do that, but so many people, they are completely fit to work. Still they are taking advantage of the government. We see that especially in Western Europe more and more. Even those who are working, they want to have a big salary. They complain about, this and that. So basically, people don't want to work anymore. In Eastern Europe or Russia, it's very different still. People are completely different quality. But here in Western Europe, we're becoming more and more lazy. Let's just say it as it is. Okay, if you have a computer, you can surrender to doing that work, or if you have to drive a car or something. But doing your duty, working hard, is more and more down. And of course, we have so many machines, and then we become depending on the machines, so we don't have to work so much. But how long time will this machine society be there? We don't know. So we should do our duty. You can say there are two types of duties. We have our material duty and the spiritual duty. So the spiritual duty we spoke about. We all have to serve Krishna, and especially Krishna's representative. But we also we are born with a certain nature, which is also controversial, because nowadays we think that we don't have a nature, we can do anything. It's not exactly true. You may be able to do different things, but you have to choose, and then you specialize. But frankly speaking, we cannot do everything. Although the ISKCON leaders, especially the TPs, they're supposed to expect it sometimes to do everything, like washing the bathrooms, managing, isn't it? Sometimes. But frankly speaking, we are not God, so we cannot do everything. We have to specialize. And that specialization is called Varnashram Dharma, a Sanskrit word. We have different natures that we are born with, and the best thing is to follow that nature, because we need all types of people in the society. And if we do our duty with the psycho-physical nature that we have, serve Krishna like that, we can become very happy, peaceful, and at the same time also spiritualize our lives, understand who we are, and engage in Krishna's service. So maybe there's some questions, comments. Let's stop here.
You gave the example of a soldier. It has to show that we are not the body, that if he loses his arm, it's still him. But what if he loses his head?
Oh, that's not good.
And he's not him anymore.
Yeah, then he leaves the body, usually. He's still him, but he has to leave the body because it doesn't function. Yeah, the soldier is also a good example for doing his duty. Krishna speaks about, he's preaching to Arjuna, you have to fight. Don't consider loss or gain, victory or defeat, just fight for the sake of fighting. In other words, you may die, but you have to fight still. So usually modern soldiers, they're more concerned about surviving than to laying their life on the battlefield. They just want to survive and go back home. But a real soldier, if he dies or he lives, no problem. He's doing his duty for a higher cause. So he's ready to die. Of course, in modern battle, it's foolish to be courageous, because then you just get killed. It's really horrible modern warfare. They say that the life expectancy of an infantry soldier is like 2 minutes. 2-3 minutes in combat. I heard that from Ravindra. There was a devotee who was that was in the Iraq war, that's some years ago. He was told, that soldier devotee, he was told that your life expectancy, he was told this by his superiors, is about 3 minutes. Okay. Anyway, they're ready to die. At least we should be ready to live our lives for Krishna until we leave the body. Any other questions?
No. Just ask you, why people stop following their duty, or is it like Kali Yuga, symbol of Kali Yuga, or just
Why
time?
this?
No, because before people follow their duty, even like 40 years ago or 50, you see that people were following their duty much more than now. So just what's the cause?
Well, it's always, it starts from the top. The problem starts from the top. And you can give a whole lecture about that. I'm not going to do that. But if you want to speak about the history of degradation, you can see the different downfalls of different people, starting from the Brahmanas, or what is similar to Brahmanas, or was in the West, in Europe, which was what they call the Reformation. You know about this? When the Protestants emerged out of the Catholic Church. You know this instance?
Just a little bit.
The Reformation.
Started in Czech Republic actually.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the Hussites. They were the first to rebel against the Catholic, against the Pope.
Uh-oh.
That was quite some time before Martin Luther. It's all history.
Because the Brahmanas became corrupt, or the priests became corrupt, and because they were corrupt, then the Kshatriyas, the kings and nobility, they didn't want to listen to them anymore. So that the Reformation. And then you can see how it escalated into the Revolution, French, American Revolution, that the Kshatriyas became degraded because they were not listening to the Brahmanas. So they got, as we know, cut the head off. And the third one is the communism. That the Shudras made a revolution against the Vaishyas, the workers against the capitalists. So the communism, I think you can include also Nazism, fascism. They're also the Shudras against the capitalists. That didn't work either. It's not working either.
Yeah, it's not working.
Maybe someone thinks it's working, but it doesn't look like. So that the problems start from the top. So if the leaders can become Krishna conscious, at least they can be favorable, then I think also that's why Prabhupada, many times he wanted to meet famous and important people. Of course, he also knew that pop stars are, they're not the leaders of society, but they have a great influence. So that, for example, George Harrison, he became a devotee, and that had a big effect. At least we can start with ourselves. That's already good, I think. But then people will see that somebody is showing a good example, and they would like to maybe follow. And especially the leaders should show a good example. Acharya. That means one who shows, he teaches by example. So, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Thank you for the class. So, I'm much more attentive to my duties when my guru or my temple leader is present, but when they are gone,
You just go to bed then.
yeah. How to always be,
Huh?
how to always be duty bound even when our gurus are not present.
Remember that Krishna is always there watching. We should never think we are alone. We are not alone. Is that okay?